What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I'm your host today, Jared Timms. I'm joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, welcome back. Got the new year rolling in here. How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, getting closer and closer to pitchers and catchers reporting. Once the new year hits, you're just starting to count down the days to February.
Yeah, I meant to, now you bring that up. I meant to bring that up last podcast. Kind of forgot about that. Forgot to give the countdown. I guess I can start doing that days until pitchers and catchers report. I think they report on the 14th of February. So, wow, like I'm almost a month away now, huh? That's crazy. There's so many spots to fill. So many different spots to fill. We will talk about that here. But first, just want to thank everybody so much for watching and contributing to this podcast here. The first thing we're going to talk about comes off a YouTube comment. So I'm extremely excited to talk about that. Just a question somebody had, and I think it might spark some interest here. Nate, I know you don't read our YouTube comments, but I do. I read every single one of.
I read them from time to time, just not as much as you do.
Yeah, I read them all the time. So I mean, again, if anybody had questions, or anything like that, topic ideas, drop them YouTube comments, or we get a lot of messages on Twitter X as well. So yeah, if anybody ever had questions or comments, or just drop it, and we'll more than likely talk about it. So. But thank you so much for watching and listening here. Go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell if you're watching, so you guys know when we're dropping them. I'll let you guys know. I know we're coming in here on a Tuesday, starting next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Be fantastic. Already got working on getting a bunch of guests coming on, and different people and things like that to talk some Angels baseball with us. But first, before we get going, give us a minute to pay the bills. I pulled a Derek there. Give us a minute to pay the bills. All right, let's get it rolling here, Nate. Let's get it rolling. I got a good one for you. I got a good one.
Okay.
This one comes from follower of the show, and he asks, "Why is it good to build up the middle?"
Okay.
Ooh. See, it's a fun question, right?
Yes, this is fun for me.
Yeah,
I think it's fun for you as well. Just there's so many different ways you can take this. You take this from a scouting perspective. You take this from a coaching perspective. You take this from a
Here,
any different.
Since you're a coach, college coach, take it from the
college coach. You take it from
I'll take it from the
that.
scouting.
That's one of the ways that I would take this from a college coach. So part of the reason you build up the middle, right? The most important places to your team: pitcher, catcher, shortstop, center field. Those are the guys that you are counting on. You're counting on your shortstop to be your best athlete. Defensively in the infield, he is the captain of the infield. You're looking at your center fielder to be the captain of the outfield. You're looking at your catcher to be the captain of the whole team, the guy who's going to be able to see everything. And then obviously the name of the game is pitching. You don't win anything without pitching. So part of the reason you build up the middle is because those guys typically tend to be the most athletic players on the field as well. Shortstop, center field, catcher even actually is typically one of the best athletes on the team. And then everyone jokes and says pitchers aren't athletes, but you look at it and what pitchers have to do is like ridiculous. So
it's coming from two pitchers.
Yeah, also coming from two pitchers. But so when you think about things like that, who are the easiest guys to move, right? Like if you go get two shortstops and you have super athletic guys, who is the easiest guy to move to second base? A shortstop, right? It's a lot harder to teach a first baseman who doesn't move his feet as well, usually a bigger guy. A little bit harder to move him to second or third. Third baseman, another bigger guy, typically you're moving him to first at best, but it's still not an easy transition. So I think that's one of the reasons you like to build up the middle, because it helps your team athletically, because they can typically play all over the diamond. The other thing that it helps with is it just helps with leadership. Typically, center fielder, shortstop, catcher have really good leadership traits. That's not how it works everywhere. Just because you play center field, just because you play shortstop, doesn't mean you're a good leader. But typically those positions come with really good leadership traits. So when you're looking at up the middle, it's athleticism, it's traits that leadership and things like that. And then I think the most important thing is typically those are the smartest guys on the field. Everyone up the middle is typically the smartest guys on the field, because they have to deal with everyone else's position. As a shortstop, you have to know where the second baseman and third baseman have to be on things. As a center fielder, you've got to know where the outfielders have to be. As a catcher, you have to know everyone's position, and as a pitcher, you have to know where you have to be on all these things. So I think that's why you build up the middle. For me personally, is because super easy to move guys, typically really really smart, typically really good leaders, and typically easy to play multiple positions.
Yeah, and this is something that the Angels haven't done a lot of in the past. When you look at
You
it,
know,
when
they've
they're
built corners.
when
They've built corners out
I was going to say when the
or
Angels are
corners
good,
in. Excuse me.
when the Angels are good though, they're good up the middle. I personally think when the Angels are a good team, they've been built up the middle. You think about the early,
Even 2002, like they were really good up the
very good
middle.
up the
Like
middle.
Benji
Yeah.
Molina, one of the best catchers in baseball. You can joke about how slow he was, but he was a really good catcher. He understood the game. He was a
Mhm.
really good leader. You had Eckstein, who was that guy who just kind of did his thing, but another good leadership guy, able to do the little things. You had Kennedy, and then you had Erstad, who top pick in the draft, one of the best players in Angels history during that time. And then you start to build everyone else out where you have Kennedy and then you have Salmon and Anderson and guys like that. That team was built up the middle and out. And I think that was huge for them.
Yeah, and my example was gonna be the late 2000s. You had Ibar and Howie Kendrick up the middle. Who did you have in center field? I mean, you had a plethora of guys.
Hunter
Torrey
was
Hunt,
in there.
I'm just going to give you Torrey. I'll just say Torrey Hunter
Okay.
up the middle in center field, and then behind the plate you had. I mean, yeah, everybody will laugh, but had guys like Mike Napoli and Jeff Mathis, Bobby Wilson. By the way, Jeff Mathis had a 15-plus-year career, one of the best defensive catchers of all time, and there's a reason why he continued to get jobs. Same reason why Kurt Suzuki continued to get jobs too, right? Like it's very very similar leadership qualities. Bobby Wilson's now I think he got a World Series ring. I think he was a catching coach for the Texas Rangers last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, and Mike Napoli is a first base coach. I mean, you look at good teams and they're good up the middle. Now from a scouting perspective, you brought it in from a coaching perspective as well, but it's safer to, I don't know, well, I don't want to say if it's safer, but it is a little bit safer, I think, to draft up the middle. You're able to move those guys from a scouting perspective. Yes, like Mike Trout was a shortstop in high school, right? He's not a shortstop. And he's not a shortstop. He wasn't a shortstop. You could tell that from a scouting perspective. But because of how athletic he was, yes, he could play shortstop in high school. He can play, center field. Mike Trout could play multiple other positions if he wanted to. I'm sure
He
he
was a
probably,
pitcher as well.
yeah, he could pitch as well. But from a scouting perspective, it is just that's just, I think it's safer to build that way, especially from the draft, and especially for us. Why I don't want to say like I know you didn't like Nolan Shanwell. I'm fine with Nolan Shanwell not at that price, but for me, and I've said this before, and I will always say it, I will never draft a corner. I will never draft a first baseman. I'll say that. I'll never draft a first baseman
But
in the
you're
first.
okay with the pick.
I'm okay with the pick. I'm not okay with the money that they gave Shanwell.
Yeah, I'm not okay.
I'll live by that
No,
one. I'm okay with
no.
Nolan Shanwell. I think he's a fantastic player.
I
I
think you
personally
had a
wouldn't.
better opportunity to build up the middle by drafting a guy
Exactly.
like Jacob Gonzalez, who is one of my favorite players in the draft. He was a guy who could have easily moved to third, or if he came out and just played out of his mind, it makes it easy to be like, well, Zach, like you're a little banged up. We're gonna call up Gonzo. He's gonna play shortstop, and now all of a sudden you have a problem, and it's the best problem to have. You have Jacob Gonzalez, who it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's playing really good shortstop. He's hitting. Oh, and we also had Zach Neto, who we called up earlier, who played really, really good. So now you have two shortstops, and it's like, hey, now I can slide Zach over to second, or I can slide Gonzo over to third, and you have a really, really good problem. Instead, you draft the first baseman and say, we're all about filling needs, not filling long-term teams. And so that's why I have the issue with it, because I think there's a guy who potentially has a chance to be a better player long term, especially for this team, rather than drafting a first baseman who, right now, first basemen aren't even a premier position. Like you're looking at guys playing first base, and it's like he was a failed catcher, he moved to first base, or he's an old third baseman, we're moving him to first. You're not seeing legit first baseman like we were in the early 2000s, where it was you just name off these guys, and it's like, oh my gosh, Todd Helton is a borderline Hall of Famer. McGuire's a borderline Hall of Famer, and the list went on and on and on with how many good first basemen there were. It's a different time now. There's not as many legit first basemen as there were back in the day.
Yeah, no, and I get that. You didn't draft for need though. That's the thing with Shanwell. You drafted the hit tool.
You
Which
drafted for need though too.
oh no, no, you're never drafting. You're never drafting
Hey,
for need. I can
you
guarantee
you
you're
you
never
can't
drafting.
tell me that, because what has been one of your biggest arguments for what we've done this offseason? Well, if there was a first baseman in AAA, we didn't have one until we got uh Alfonso, and
Rivas.
we got
Evan.
the Mariners kid White, Evan White. Like you've been talking about how there's no first base depth on this roster. It,
It,
it it
you
it was
didn't.
really bad.
They didn't. The Angels did not take Shanwell because they needed a first baseman. I guarantee you that. I
I'm
100%.
sure that was a big part of it.
No, no, no shot.
I'm
No,
sure it
no
was a big
shot. You
part of
could.
it.
There's no way you could have guaranteed Nolan Shanwell being up this year. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I
Like
don't know.
they didn't draft for.
If you look at the way Perry drafts, he drafts for the guy who's going to get to the big leagues the fastest, and then that fits an immediate need. That
Ah,
seems to be the way he goes about it, and it killed both birds with the one stone.
yeah, I disagree, but I mean that for from a scouting perspective, you're never drafting need, especially in
You would
baseball.
hope
That is,
not.
you're never drafting for need.
You would hope not.
With that being said, though, one other point. Again, you look at what the Angels have done in past years and how they're building. I will put like an exclamation point on Anthony Rendon because he was a shortstop, and that's why it's
No,
good
not
to look
counting
at it.
that.
That's fine. I know. I
Like
know.
you signed a third baseman
You
that
did.
was a third baseman.
You did. I
Albert
I,
Pujols,
I know.
Albert Pujols, same thing.
I'll
You signed a
Pujols.
first baseman who was a first baseman. Like
Yes.
that's why I said the Angels have been building corners in instead of middle out, and that's typically the way that the good teams do it. You see
Easy.
the
It's
the
easy to
middle
draft middle
out,
out. Yeah. It's
and
easy.
like you go look at the really good teams right now. The Atlanta Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr. was a center fielder that moved towards to right because they needed a right fielder. They had Dansby Swanson up the middle. They had Ozzy Albies up the middle. They go get Sean Murphy to really build that up the middle part, and now you can go start to build outside where it's like, oh hey, what do we need? Oh, we have Austin Riley. Great, we have a third baseman. Great, we have Matt Olson. Um, you look at what the Yankees are trying to do right now. The Yankees are doing the same exact thing that we're preaching that the Angels should be doing. They're going and saying like, hey, all our kids are up the middle, guys. Dominguez is a center fielder. You might not think he's a center fielder long term, but he's at least a center fielder for the next 5-6 years. You look at Volpe. Volpe's a shortstop. You have um, Oswaldo. Is it Peraza? Who's a up the middle guy? He's a shortstop. He's probably going to move to second or third.
Mhm.
Like Gleyber Torres, ex shortstop, moved to second. Um, all these guys are up the middle, and then they're able to move off of shortstop. And I think that's one thing that the Angels haven't really done a good job of is we'll just go get guys that play corners and hope that they can stay at corners as long as our contract is for these guys. And that typically doesn't happen. And that's why I love the up the middle guys the most, because what happens if a guy can't play shortstop in 5-6 years? He can play second because he's going to be athletic enough and good enough to be able to play second for the last 3 or 4 years of his contract, or however long the contract is, compared to a guy like Albert Pujols. Where is Albert going to move to? DH. Okay, that doesn't help the roster. Where's Anthony Rendon going to move to? Maybe he moves to first, but that still doesn't really solve a problem. Like maybe he moves to DH. Like, yes, I know he played second in college. I know
There
he
you go.
played third in college.
That that's why I
But
bring it. I know you said exactly why I said Anthony Rendon is kind of that outlier.
but
Yes, he's a third baseman with the Angels now, but
and he was a third baseman with Washington as well. And I know he played
came up as
second
a
base at Rice
shortstop,
and
came up
things
as a
like that.
second baseman. Yeah.
But like you're not projecting him to move to second at the latter half of his career. Like that's the difference between shortstops and second basemen, where it's like this second baseman you don't typically see. I think DJ LeMahieu is one of the guys that comes to mind. That's like, well, he was a second baseman and moved to first. Most second basemen stay at second base their whole career. DJ is the one outlier because he is 6'4", and typically your second basemen aren't 6'4". Same thing with shortstops. You see them move to second, just like Javi Baez made Addison Russell move over, and guys like that. They do a really good job of like, wow, we just have so many up the middle athletes that whoever the youngest best athlete is going to play short. We'll just slide the other guy to second, or we'll slide the other guy to third. Like people think that Corey Seager could end up doing, which that was another reason to get Corey Seager, because you knew that he was going to stay up the middle a long period of time.
Yeah, and I mean that. So the final point of this, and thank you, Kyle, for this question because it's actually um, brings up a lot
Fun
of
for me.
yeah. No, I mean it's good from the scouting standpoint because that's what I look for when I'm going out scouting. It's like you're looking up the middle talent. It's like yeah, especially with the we're gonna have international talk. Bring Taylor Blake Ward on, and he'll talk some international with us here pretty soon. But yeah, you're looking up the middle always, and in to finish this off, the Texas Rangers did it really well. They went up and they got Corey Seager and Marcus Simeon, two up the middle guys. Uh,
Josh Jung was a shortstop in college. Their third baseman, by the way.
Josh Jung was a third baseman in college.
No, he was not. He was a shortstop his first 2 years. They moved him to third
There you go.
his last year
Get
before,
drafted.
and he started to go off. But he was a shortstop the first couple of years of his college career.
So was Anthony Rendon.
Different,
All
different.
right, all right, all right. On to another conversation. But thank you, Kyle, for that question. Fantastic. If anybody has any other questions, drop them in the comments down below. More than happy to answer them for you. If you're watching us here on YouTube, if you're listening to us, go follow us on YouTube and drop a comment. So, last order of business that I want to talk about here, and because it's not a lot of news going on, it's slow, it's slim pickings. But next podcast we'll talk Hall of Fame, so we'll get into that then. I did want to talk about it, but this one, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, both have been pushed towards, I don't want to say linked really, but like pushed towards the Angels. I feel like MLB is pushing
There's been
towards the
some
Angels.
links.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll let you kind of take this away. We had some comments on Twitter about it today. But it's probably a good thing the Angels are quiet right now because when the Angels are linked to those big names, it means that, at least for us, it means that agents are pushing the Angels on their players and trying to get more money from other teams, which is a good thing. And which is one reason why I think the Yankees are getting pushed onto Blake Snell a little bit right now, too. I think the Yankees seem to be a desperate team, and they're not really that desperate when you look at them. They could use another pitcher, but I don't think they're desperate. Um, so I think that's one of the things. I don't think that Blake Snell is a Yankee. I don't think Blake Snell is an Angel. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd be surprised if he was one of those two. I think that there's other teams looking at him, other teams that want him. And I'm one of those guys. At least Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, with how amount of money they're going to get, I'm completely not in on either one of those guys. And I don't know if you have any say in that.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Yankees go get Montgomery or Snell. I think they're looking for another guy to kind of cement that rotation. That rotation is very top heavy. I mean, you're looking at Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, who the big question mark for us last offseason. Does he stay healthy? Didn't really stay healthy his first year. And then you have you've got a couple kids in that rotation, and you have Nestor Cortez, where it's like, he had one good year and he had one bad year. So you just really don't know. And the Yankees, they know when they've been good, they've had three legit starters. Like you think about when they had CC Sabathia and AJ Burnett, and I'm blanking on who the kid was on that team, but they had, like, when they were really good, it was 3-man rotations in the postseason, and it was legit. And I think they're searching for that guy. They were in on
Yamamoto.
I think, yeah, they were in on Yamamoto. I don't think they went as high as everyone else, obviously the years and the money, but they were in on Yamamoto. So I think they are searching for one more guy. The one thing that is kind of interesting for me with Blake Snell and the Yankees, Blake Snell pitched really, really good with Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez, ex-Yankee. I could see a reunion of Gary Sanchez, Yankees, to kind of help the young kids mature, because they are going to have a young kid behind the dish most likely this year. And then to have Blake Snell with that staff, it would be really left-handed. But if you think about it, in that ballpark, you would rather be left-handed pitching wise, because you don't want the righties being able to hit the ball 245 feet to right field for a homer. So yes, the righties can still do that too, but the lefties are the ones that are going to hit the cheap pull home run. So it would make a little bit of sense for the Yankees to go after Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. Um, Angel wise, I think the Angels. There was actually a comment on X today from someone that said, "Is it possible the Angels are in on a lot of these guys because they want to say, hey, at least we tried. We aren't going to get any of these guys, but you can't get mad at me because we tried." And I think that was Brian M on X, and honestly, wouldn't shock me if that's the way the Angels went about this because Artie and Perry, they need to be in this hunt because they know they need starting pitching. But we know Artie doesn't really push the starting pitching market. So I could easily see that being the case. Um, I also we've heard so much from Perry saying this roster's pretty good. We like the roster. I don't think there's going to be any major pitching changes unless you see a trade. Once you see the trade, then I think it starts to open things up for a Blake Snell, a Jordan Montgomery, an Amanga, those type of guys that the Angels could go after. Um, but but you're gonna have to see a Griffin Canning, a Tyler Anderson, or a Patrick Sandoval get dealt for that to even be a question because supposedly the Angels are signing Zach Plesac. We'll know more probably tomorrow is what it sounds like from Murray. He said that he's got his physical and everything, and we'll see the number. Hopefully that number is low, is what's being reported. So that seems to be the way the Angels are going. Is like, hey, we're kind of good with what we have. We have Plesac who's gonna push for a rotation spot. If not, he's gonna go to the minor leagues. And we're just gonna be okay with being average at the starting rotation. I think it's below average, honestly. It really is a below average rotation. There is no like convincing me it's average or above average. Um, so I don't think the Angels are actually going to make a big pitching move unless you see a Patrick Sandoval or Tyler Anderson trade or even a Griffin Canning trade. Um, but the Angels need a lot of help, and they really need to be open to every avenue, whether it's center field, whether it's second base, whether it's shortstop, um, whether it's corner outfield, whatever. The Angels just need a lot of help with this roster. So I think that they're just casting a wide net and hoping that somebody's willing to take a little bit less to play for the Angels. And I think that's kind of where they're at. It's like, well, we'll show some interest in Snell. If he'll take 5 for 20 a year, great, we'll sign him. And we all know Blake Snell's not signing 5 for 20. Um, or we'll sign Jordan Montgomery at 5 at 20. Would he take that? Probably not. And I think they're just kind of saying like, hey, we're in this, just kind of lowballing everyone because they don't really want to do anything major to the pitching staff. Offensively, they want to do some things, but which way are they going to go? Are they going to go the DH way, which I think would be a big mistake, whether that's Jorge Soler or JD Martinez? Are they going to go with a corner outfielder who's really not a good defender like a Teoscar Hernandez or a Jock Peterson? Or are they actually going to build up the middle like we've been talking about, go get a guy like Cody Bellinger and move Trout to a corner? And then now you could even trade Taylor Ward and get another starting pitcher. So I think you're really waiting on the outfield market before you even see a big name like Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery and it become a realistic option for the Angels.
Yeah. Looked it up by the way. 2009, Sabathia, Burnett, Pettit was the other guy there in
Yeah.
Java. Java Chamberlain came on strong there at the end.
But Jabba pitched out of the pen, right?
He was starting that year. He
In the
started,
postseason.
I
Because
believe.
they only won three, man. CC threw on 3 days rest every single
Yeah.
time.
Well, yeah. CC was a different beast that year, but I mean they had other guys. I mean Phil Hughes made some starts. I would assume he made some starts
He
down
he
this.
went to the pen probably.
Yeah, down the stretch. Sergio Mitri made some starts. Ming Wong was not very good, made some starts. And then Chad Godan made some starts as well. But yeah, no, you just mentioned it. Like that's a three-man rotation in the playoffs, and you ride that. But yeah, I mean, by the way, 5 for 20 for Jordan Montgomery for me is even too much. I'm
Oh,
just not a
I
big
wasn't even saying that I
no,
would do that, but I'm
no.
thinking he thinks he's getting 25.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. I can't. I wouldn't do it. I can't do that for Jordan Montgomery. I 20 a year for Snell, absolutely, but like he doesn't do that. So, it's tough. Also, I mean, that makes the Angels super left-handed. Like it's as weird as that sounds. I don't know if I'm in on the super lefty. I know that I preached it last year. I think it's harder to hit lefties at Angel Stadium, and
Yeah.
there's something to it. And I know we talked to Joe Adell, and it's he I mean, we talked to him off
He
the
didn't
record.
mention anything about that.
He well, no, he didn't mention anything about hitting lefties, but he did mention it's tough to play the outfield in at Angel Stadium, and it's not easy to see at Angel Stadium, which
From an outfield perspective, different from a hitter off a lefty.
we know it's tough to hit as a lefty there. It's been mentioned. The Angels have made changes that
Mm,
it's tough to hit against lefties there. The Angels
sure,
made changes
sure.
in the out. The Angels made changes in the outfield so that the Angels righties could see better. So against left-handed pitching a couple years ago. So I don't know. I'm not in on either one of those guys at the price that they want. And also, like I said, for me, this next season, 2024 for the Angels, like I'm setting expectations very, very low because not because Shohei Ohtani left, but because of what the Angels have done in the past. Plus, they haven't added anybody. So you lose Shohei Ohtani, you lose your best player, and you expect to be better. It's tough.
Possible.
It is possible, 100%. Like you go to a 5-man rotation. I totally get it. You get the media out of the clubhouse. Like you have a new manager in Ron Washington. You have a new pitching coach. You have a whole new staff in there. It's possible, definitely is. But to think that you're gonna be better is very tough. But I think they do. I think they beat Vegas. I think a lot. Like if you're gonna go make bets on the Angels winning more than being a 500 team or whatever. Like because I think they have a better chance of being a 500 team than they do of losing 100 games, which I think a lot of people are pegging them as a 100 loss team. It feels like right now. So, but yeah, I'm not in on signing that big dude, that big guy. If it's Snell, if it's Montgomery, only because I don't think the window's open this year in 2024. I really don't. I don't think this is the year for them to win. I think they could be a 500 team. I do. But I don't think that I really don't think that they're going to go out there and win this year. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But you look at 2025, you look at the team that they're building right now, and I'm intrigued. We talked about it. They're building up the middle. They have a strong young core that seems to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what continues to happen with this team and see if they can make some trades to get even younger. And we talked about maybe trading a Taylor Ward, trading a Patrick Sandoval, trading Griffin Canning, guys that might not fit that window. Or even last podcast we talked about extending guys. So I'm intrigued. I'd like to see them build for 2025 and beyond. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching and listening here at Talking Halos. Again, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead, hit the bell as well so you know when we're dropping podcasts. Remember, starting next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can follow all of us on social media. Just look up Talking Halos. You can follow myself on X at Jared_Tim's, Nate at Nate Green 34. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.